Can you tell us a little more about Sean's involvement and like what that?
Yes, Sean. So I met Sean before he started Ferngully. I think I met him at another night called Group Hug, which was more of a Sunday afternoon, kind of an alternative bear night at the enormous room in Central Square. It was a really fun night. Not as much of a dance night as a lounge event, but it was, had really good music, and the crowd was really good. And he had said that he wanted to start a kind of an alternative, artsy bear night at the Alley, and was thinking about who to ask to DJ. And I, told him that I DJ, but at that point, it had been a while since I DJed publicly and certainly in a club or anything. Mm-hmm. So but David Dancer was, kind of the go-to guy for all of those events. So that's the guy that he hired to DJ the first Ferngully, to be the resident DJ. And so then after a few months of Ferngully, then he asked me to guest DJ, or if I would want to guest DJ. Right. So that's how I kind of got my chance to play. And
it started out as a guest thing, but it became pretty evident early on that you're going to be asked back and become a regular.
After a few months.
Yeah.
And it went pretty well for a few months. So then he asked if I would like to, and then it just became permanent.
And David didn't really mind sharing the duties at all. He was.
I don't think so. I hope not.
Well,
it didn't. It seemed it worked.
Well, he moved to LA not long after.
He moved to LA anyway.
Right. Right, so Sean is hosting, but he's not a DJ. So this idea of having a host that exists outside of the DJs.
Well, and it for Ferngully, he started the night, and it was his vision for the night, and he's a photographer. Right. And Ferngully, it really has a strong visual image. We have visuals at the night, but our promotion of the event each month is a model, a cover model we call them, but they're from the community. They're from the night usually. A regular at the night, and it really kind of it's a good branding for the night.
And this is also almost like kind of a Warhol factory kind of thing, right? A little bit. I mean, having like local kind of like celebrities sort of be like the cover models and things like that, right? So it is sort of personalizing the night in a very different way.
It's fun, and we've actually talked about having a calendar, a collection of all the covers, because at this point there's 4 years of them, and it's really neat to go back and look at all of the posters each month. But he was the host, but then he, shortly after David Dancer moved to LA, Sean moved to Germany to study for 8 months.
That's right. He was away for a while, yeah.
And at that point, the night was in limbo a little bit, like what are we going to do with it? But we really wanted to keep the night going, and especially once DJ Taffy joined me, we thought we could keep it going. It didn't have that host that was always just there apart from the DJ booth, but we alternate DJing, so we thought we can kind of keep it going, hopefully. And it had never occurred to me to be a host of a night. It's not something I was drawn to. I actually liked DJing and hiding behind the DJ booth and kind of doing my thing. Right. And it had never occurred to me that I would want to do that. But when it came to keeping your night afloat, it did become a priority to me. And so we did start becoming the sort of hosts of the night as well. But I started going to a lot of other nights then. Like you said, Videodrome with Craig McNeil and Bob Russo, and Group Hug, Foxy, what else? Oh, LaBoom still. I tried to start going, or Don't Ask, Don't Tell also.
So going out to other nights, it becomes important because you have to be seen. And people have to know who you are and know that you have your own night, and you...
Well, that's what happened, but the reason I just was kind of curious. I didn't want to stay in a bubble of my own night. I kind of wanted to see what everyone else was doing and who was going to each night, and just hear different sounds. But once I started to go to the nights, I really enjoyed them, and I really liked all the people I was meeting. But what I found was that making that personal connection at other nights, when you say, and you meet people, and then they realize you DJ Ferngully, and then they say, oh, well, I'll come check out your night. And that personal connection I found was really effective.
It's probably more effective than anything else in a way.
Than even Facebook.
Facebook or advertising or any of that stuff. I've come to realize that recently, that real life connections with people is real. You can't. And sometimes it's even flyering. Sometimes it's even putting a flyer in their hand and saying,
I hate flyers.
I know, me too. But I think that sometimes you really need to actually get in their face and say, this is who I am and this is what I'm doing.
And a lot of it they hear. I mean, everyone would maybe hear about Fur and Gold or hear about Another Night, but they don't know what it is. And you know, people really need to know what a night is.
Information going through people's feeds and their like. I mean, they get bombarded with information. So to stand out, is it's kind of hard. I mean, even though it's not a big city and there isn't that much, it feels like sometimes going on. It still is really.
People are pretty segregated.
Yeah, it's hard to sort of punch through and create awareness.
Well, and I find that a lot of people, you know, and as a DJ, you think that your music is what's going to create the whole night and, you know, save it and make people do everything, but it's not. It's a little bit of it. A lot of it is what is the vibe that's at that night and what is the crowd and that's why people actually go out. I mean, music is, you know, people might be into it once they're there, but I don't think that's really why they go out so much.
I feel like that might have changed, though. I feel like music might have been more of a focus for people back at obviously at the birth of disco, right? And then like maybe throughout the 80s and things like that. Like, there are people who are dancers.
I am, so I understand what you're saying. There's places even if there is going to be a crowd there, if I don't like the music, I just can't really get into it.
Right.
And but you know, conversely, if there's a place where, well, how is that conversely? But I really,
the music's
go out
really great.
Yes, I go out and go dancing.
Right, but people might not be dancing even if the music's really great because they aren't dancers first and foremost.
Right.
I mean,
they're there to hang out more.
There was a whole tradition of dancers, like, and we're talking not just people with the fans and all that stuff, but I mean, I came up at a time when there were people who actually were considered, you know, first and foremost dancers. They didn't go to socialize.
Right.
They didn't go.
I've definitely been that person.
Dance. And I feel like that, to some degree, maybe just based on my own limited experience now, feels like it's changed a little bit. It feels less dance-driven or music-driven. It does feel more.
Well, now the interesting thing is that back then it was more of a general, like a club would be more general and try to appeal to a lot of people, even the dancers and the non-dancers. But now with these monthly nights and the music is more specialized, you're creating a social, an atmosphere and a crowd. But you also can specialize your music to that crowd, so you can kind of get that again. And I certainly at Fur and Gold, I mean, because we do know a lot of our crowd, and it's an intimate night, and we're, you know, whenever there's new people, we want to meet them, and you know, we become friends with them, and I know I don't want to call it trolling, but I really try to look around and see what people are into musically, or they'll message me personally, and I really want to keep up on that. Right,
but do you think people are more open-minded about music now, or do you notice a change? I mean,
some people are.
Yeah.
Some people are. A lot of people still are very casual about music and they know a song that they like, but they have no idea who it is.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I think that's still a majority of people.
Yeah.
You know, and you'll always have a smaller group that's, you know, that's more
dedicated.
Yes, and follows it more.
Right.
This is actually, you know, with some other friends of mine that DJ, because we're constantly looking for new music, we get music and we play it, but we might play it at a time when no one knows it yet. But there have been, especially a few songs like an Icona Pop, I love it, where we played that, you know, a year before anyone knew it. Right. So the next summer, everyone wants to hear it. Meanwhile, we're just like tired of that song.
Right.
But it's, you know, it's for them. But it's just kind of funny how that still does happen. You might break a song, but it might not have the context yet for people until they hear it in a car commercial. Right.
And then suddenly it's everywhere.
Right. And then they want to hear it.
Then you find yourself having to play it again. And I think that's always kind of funny to see.
It happens a lot.
It does, yeah. And I think that it's our job to remember that sometimes just because we're sick of a song or because we think it's old, it's not as old to everybody else.
It's not at all.
At all. I mean, the record be out for a year and we go now.
Yeah. And you know, that's nothing new. I mean, that's what happened with Missing by Everything But the Girl.
Yeah.
It came out and was completely under the radar, and then it had a Todd Terry remix.
Right.
And it became huge. It went all over the world. So
right.
That's always been a phenomenon.
Yeah, that's interesting. So keep that in mind. So okay, so that we get the idea about Fur and Gold and about you hosting it. But when Sean's gone in Germany for those 8 months or so, there's no photos being taken regularly, or what? I forget what happened then.
So that's probably right. We didn't have an event photographer because that's what he did during that time.
Did you notice the dynamic change while he was gone?
Well, just the energy level was down, and I think also, you know, the night had been around for almost a year at that point, or a year. I think we had a year anniversary while he was gone.
Yeah.
I think. But the main thing I noticed was that we couldn't, having a night that's almost a year old, it was time to start evolving the night and doing things differently. But with him overseas, we couldn't really do that. I mean, he was still, you know, host of the night on some level with us, and he, you know, was sending us the cover art, and it still had an image. But the night was stagnant, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
I think we all felt it. So when he got back, it was kind of, you know, what are we going to do? But I think we were, at that time, we started having like monthly meetings to plan for Go, and we started planning theme nights and just, you know, different stuff we could do
and
at
just
night.
talk
even
about issues at the night and everything else. Yeah.
And just, you know, how to be strategic in planning the night and trying different things and shaping it, and how to reach new people. I mean, that was even with all of our friends on Facebook, it was like the same group. How can we reach different people? And you know, we thought, do we need to advertise it at BU? I mean, do we need? We were just kind of trying to think of anything.
Right.
So, but we were also able to try stuff, and I think we did our first theme night. I guess Pet Shop Boys was our first theme night, and that's something that I think Taffy and I really love, the Pet Shop Boys, and certainly have everything that they've done.
Right.
But they're also a band that has such a history and such a breadth of, a diversity of music that you could make a whole night of them. There are a few artists that you can do that with.
Right.
And they have a broad appeal too.
Right.
With the crowd. So that was something we really wanted to do, and that was very successful. So.
And the renewed focus, sort of, with Sean coming back, seems to pay off. Like I said, the night gets bigger, and it feels like it just gets broadened way.
And I think it just started to solidify at that point, like the image of it, and what I think. And that's the thing, is a night needs an identity, so people know what they're getting. But by that point, they knew what the music was going to be, but they also knew the crowd and this kind of beardy guy image. It became pretty clear at that point with the night.
But it takes a night a while to find an identity sometimes.
It does,
right? And the club owners or venue owners have to be willing to sort of give it some time, as much time as they can give it, I guess, within reason, as far as the return on their investment, I guess you could call it. Sometimes it takes a while for a night's identity to develop, and I would say that's probably at least a year.
I think so, because especially in Boston, you have this, and in the gay community, I know with boyfriends we've had this, where you can have a really strong set of months, but then in the summer, everyone's gone.
Right.
No one's in town on the weekends.
Right.
So your whole core crowd is gone.
Right. So you start Boyfriends with the notion of having a guest, and Taffy is your first guest for a soft opening for the night.
And the reason he couldn't be more involved with Boyfriends was because of the night that it was the third Friday of the month, and he had started a new rock and roll, a gay rock and roll night called Bollocks, which sometimes would clash with it.
Right. So he comes in, does a soft opening, then you have a rotating cast of guest DJs. And that night, like you said, it seems to go pretty well, except summertime, like a lot of places, it has its ups and downs in the summer, like a lot of places
and
do.
Still, it's not that we were completely empty. It's just for a place that's pretty big, when you have 80 people versus 190 people, you can tell the difference.
But it's pretty clear they're happy with what you guys are doing there.
And they're good about supporting the night.
Yeah.
And developing it. So.
Yeah, that's good.